For those of you that don't know, I'm Ryan Baker. I'm one of the friends on Bishop and Friends from 9 to noon on 97.1 The Fan. And of course, this is the reason you're here. Anthony Munoz, 1998 inductee into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and of course, longtime Cincinnati Bengal. You mentioned you know what part of the state you're in. You've been a Buckeye now for a long time, technically.
Well, yeah, a resident of the Buckeye State, not an actual Buckeye. No, I'm good. I mean, I respect the university. It's a great university, and of course, our daughter, we didn't have to pay for her to come here, so I mean, she got a scholarship. But no, we're big. I mean, we love the state of Ohio. I mean, the entire state. Even Cleveland. But no, my wife, military, her dad retired when she was, 11, 12 years old, settled in Southern California. We got married my sophomore year in college. We come here to Cincinnati, played 13 years. A week after my last game, I get a call from Los Angeles. The coach I played for invited me to be the offensive line coach at USC. We took 2 days. We prayed through it. Our kids were 9-11. I called John Robinson. I said, Coach, I am flattered. I believe I could do an excellent job. I'm flattered that you would even consider me as your line coach, but we've decided to stay in Cincinnati. And we fall in love with Cincinnati and the state, and here we are 45 years after we got drafted, and we love it here.
So I mentioned to you this morning how much I've learned about you this week, all kinds of cool, interesting facts, and we were actually just talking before, so since we talked Ohio State, let's talk about that, because one of the things that you and Coach Vermeil have in common is you both beat undefeated Ohio State teams in the Rose Bowl. He did it as the coach of UCLA in 1976. You did it in 1980, and you didn't even play that year. That was the only game you played in because you had hurt your knee. You didn't want to take the redshirt year. You wanted to come back and you wanted to play Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. Talk a little bit about that experience, what you remember from the game, and then you also, when Coach Vermeil won, you were in the recruiting process then. Talk a little bit about that story you were just telling us back there.
Well, first of all, unfortunately, I wouldn't trade it for anything because of what I learned and the character. It just it made who I am, and then my wife and I were married my sophomore year in college, so we went through a lot of it. My senior year, after going through 2 knee operations prior to my senior year, freshman year, junior year, my sophomore year was the only healthy year I played. We had won the national championship my junior year, so I started for 7 games on that block for a Heisman Trophy winner. So we go into my senior year ranked number 1, coming off the national championship year. It wasn't 7 games into the season like my freshman year or 9 games into the season like my junior year. It was the second time we had the football. I'm down on the turf, and I knew exactly what had happened. I had 2 on my right. This time it was my left knee. We're in Lubbock, Texas. Fly home. I go through my 3rd knee operation in week 1. So I was determined. Things were going along, and I stayed very engaged with my team. I became the official. How many know what spats are? Yeah. Guys that tape the outside of their shoe. Well, at USC, you could tape the outside of your shoe, but you had to spray paint it black. We weren't, it was the low socks. It was no name on the back, and if you spat. So I became the official spatter for 2 or 3 of my guys. I would carry the spray can, I'd have the tape, and I wasn't playing, so I wanted to stay engaged, and I kept telling them, just keep winning, because I'm going to be back to play with you guys in the Rose Bowl. And they would look at me like, yeah, right. We had beaten Michigan twice prior to my senior year in the Rose Bowl, so we're 2-0, and we needed one more team to kind of run the gamut of the 2 top teams in the Big Ten. So we kept winning, and we ended up winning the Pac-10. A lot of young people are saying Pac-10. Well, my first 2 years at SC was the Pac-8, and then it was the Pac-10, then it was the Pac-12, and then it's no more now. So we kept winning, and I was like on a mission. The rehab, the surgery was done, the rehab, and I knew if we won the Pac-10, I was going to be ready to play in the Rose Bowl. So we win the Pac-10. So I had to go in. I went in to talk to my coach, John Robinson, and I said, Coach, I want to play. And he took me about a half an hour to convince him, I'm going to play. And he went through the practice schedule, and he said, well, we'll have you go through this drill, not this drill, this drill. Not. I said, Coach, every drill you're having me go through is a non-contact drill. I said, I want to go through everything and earn that starting job back. So I made every practice. The rehab and the conditioning was on a bicycle when I was rehabbing, but it didn't take long for me to get my legs under me. I made every practice. The starting lineup was announced, January 1st, 1980. It was about, 82, 83 degrees. And they announced the starting lineup. They announced, Keith Van Horn as one starting tackle. Then they announced number 77, Anthony Munoz, at the other tackle. And I think a lot of people scratched their head, said, who in the heck is this guy? Where'd he come from? But I ended up starting. We're playing the number one team in the country, who I'm sure a lot of you are fans of. And they're a pretty good team. So we played. I'll never forget. I played the entire game, but about 2 plays. It was early in the game. I had to run out because I thought I was starting to hyperventilate. I was so geeked up and so excited about the game. And so Bruce Matthews, another Pro Football Hall of Famer, he was a freshman. He played the UCLA game that year. He comes in, had a couple plays, and he runs out, and I finished the game. And we end up a little frustrating. We have to drive 82 yards to win. Charles White had about 250 yards rushing. And that was the frustrating thing about it. We're going up and down the field, we throw an interception, up and down the field, we fumble. But we end up scoring to beat Ohio State 17-16. The only game I played that year, and of course, then I ended up getting drafted by the Cincinnati Bengals. And now they're close friends, but a lot of my close friends did not like me when I got to Cincinnati because they're the biggest Buckeye fans around.
So you disappointed Coach Hayes twice, once beating him in the Rose Bowl, and then in recruiting as well.
Well, Coach Hayes was not he was actually, it was Earl Bruce. He had left. Coach Hayes, but I do have Coach Hayes.
Yeah.
I do have a Coach Hayes story. So I pretty much handled my recruiting at the age of 16, 17, because Mom raised 5 by herself, and she really didn't know what was going on. But I always was a big USC fan, so when they offered me, I was staying in LA. There's no way. And so all the other schools across the country were calling me, and I said, thanks, but no thanks. I didn't want to take a trip. Guys are going, you at least have to take a trip. I said, no, if I could take a trip, then somebody else can't take a trip. So that season I was getting recruited, Ohio State just killed UCLA in the regular season. I mean, they were bigger and stronger and faster. So all of a sudden, UCLA beats USC the final game of the season. They're going to the Rose Bowl. And who are they playing? Ohio State's coming out. About 2 weeks before Ohio State got to Southern California, I get a call from one of the Ohio State coaches. I'll never forget. It's Coach Mummey. He says, Anthony, this is Coach Mummey. I'm on the staff with Woody Hayes, and Woody Hayes wanted me to call you. He would love to have lunch with you when we're out in LA. And I'm like, Coach, I appreciate that. I said, but I'm convinced and I'm committed. I'm going to USC. And he said, well, thank you for taking the call. I'll let Coach Hayes know that. That's the only regret I have, was not just having lunch with Coach Hayes and meeting him, because of course I played with Archie Griffin, the only 2-time Heisman Trophy, and he speaks volumes. Even now, he speaks so highly of Coach Woody Hayes. I wish I would have just had a chance. Never met him. I would have a chance just to sit down and have lunch with him, but I didn't do that. So, so pretty good record against Ohio State in the Big Ten when I was there. Hopefully my boys can kind of ramp it up now that they're in the Big Ten, because they didn't fare very well last year.
One of the reasons, obviously, growing up in California, you would think you said 40 minutes to USC.
Well, on a non-traffic day.
Non-traffic days.
Hour and 40 minutes.
Which maybe there were non-traffic days back then. I don't think there are anymore.
Between certain hours there was.
But one of the reasons you chose USC is because your first love was actually baseball. And I don't know how many people know that you were a pitcher on the 1978 USC National Championship baseball team. That's pretty amazing. I'm guessing there's a lot of guys that they're just so good in one sport, but they may have loved another sport. Talk about your love for baseball and what that was like winning a national championship.
Well, first of all, baseball. I started playing baseball at the age of 6, 7. I had 2 brothers. I lost a brother that was 2 years older than me, and then I have a brother that's 8 years older than me, and they were both baseball players. So I just kind of hung out with them and played baseball. And like I said, at 6, 7 years old, my dream was to be a Major League Baseball player. And God gave me an amazing gift of baseball. I mean, I'll never forget. In Little League Baseball, you played automatically with your sibling. So when I was 8 years old, you started at 9 years old. When I was 8 years old, I'd go to practice with my brother. In the first half hour, 40 minutes, they were taking batting practice. So I'd plant myself on third base, and the coach would let me just sit there as an 8-year-old because I knew I was going to be the starting third baseman as a 9-year-old. But once they started taking infield, outfield, I had to leave and just watch. So, I mean, baseball was it, and I started competing. I got to high school, and I played for the coach that I met when I was 7 and playing Parks and Recreation baseball for. I was a starter at third base 3 years for him on the varsity, and baseball was still, okay, even though I continued to grow, and by my senior I was 6'6", 290, 275 playing third base, and I was getting all these offers from college. When I was being recruited, I would ask the recruiting coach from the colleges, can I play baseball? If I have the ability to play, and they would say yes. And I think most of the schools, that was part of their recruiting pitch, but I knew USC, that was something they've done. They had a track record of letting guys, I don't know how many of you remember Anthony Davis, running back, great running back. He was an outfielder on the USC. Remember Randy Johnston, the big 6'10" pitcher? The guy that caught him about 2-3 years after I left college, linebacker in the NFL, head coach in the NFL, Jack Del Rio, caught Randy Johnson. So USC had a track record, so I was signed, sealed, and delivered. Because of injury, I only played 1 year of baseball, and that was my sophomore year in school, was my freshman year of baseball, and we were just absolutely loaded. So coach said, you're gonna be a relief pitcher. So until I got my arm into shape, I played a couple games on JV. Then they moved me up to the varsity, and I was DHing a little bit, playing a little first base. I mean, we had a first baseman that was unbelievable. So when he wanted to give him a rest, he'd put me in just to give him a little spell. But as soon as my arm got into shape, I was in the bullpen, and then I was fungo hitter to the outfielders, no longer hitting. But that year, we had 4 pitchers on the staff that had 10+ wins. Our whole team got drafted. As a freshman pitcher on the staff, I think I got to pitch 11 innings. I can say that I'm undefeated as a college pitcher. We were in Texas during Easter. Our starting pitcher took a line drive off the arm, and I pitched enough to get the win. So I was 1-0. I got to make the trip to Omaha, Nebraska, and got to experience the national championship, just kind of being a bodyguard for all my teammates.
That looks good on the resume, right? Undefeated and World Series champion.
Yeah.
That's pretty nice. So you mentioned Cincinnati Bengals, obviously, 3rd pick in the draft, 1980. Did you know anything about Cincinnati, Ohio before you got drafted?
There was very few things that I knew that the stadium was on the river. Why? Because I watched the Cincinnati Reds play their baseball games, and I knew the football team played. And then, Kenny Anderson was somewhat familiar to me, but after I got off the call that Cincinnati drafted me, Didi and I looked at each other. I'm weeping, we're crying. Hey, to be going as the 3rd pick after missing the entire season, then we composed ourselves, and about the same time we looked at each other and we're like, where's Cincinnati? Not strong in geography, so we grabbed the map and we were just thrilled to be coming here. But yeah, I didn't know a whole lot about it. We got here, and if you can imagine, coming as this member of the Cincinnati Bengals in 1980, the 2 previous years they were 4-12, and the Reds still had the big red machine. I'm thinking, is there any memorabilia, anything to do with the Bengals? It was all red and white. It was all Reds. Well, the second year we went to the Super Bowl that I was here, and finally we started seeing some orange and black around the city. But it was just a major baseball. You can imagine the first team to start, and what they went through in the 70s. But we learned a lot about Cincinnati right away. Fell in love with Cincinnati right away, and like I said earlier, we love it. But no, didn't know a whole lot about it.
You mentioned the Super Bowl 16, Super Bowl 23. You guys got to play in both of them, unfortunately. Lose to San Francisco both times. But what is that like, getting to the Super Bowl in that whole spectacle?
Well, first of all, for you Notre Dame fans, we mentioned them earlier. I look at it more not losing to the 49ers, but losing to Joe Montana. Every time I see him, I have to I have nightmares and cold sweats the night after I see him. But no, the fact that we played into just amazing experience. But the one thing that I'm thrilled about, both years that we played in the Super Bowl, we had home field advantage. So we played the divisional playoff game and the AFC championship game in Cincinnati in front of our fans. And that to me was worth it, because back then, our second year, the year we made that run, especially in November, we were 5-0 in November, that Super Bowl year. I talked to a lot of young people because of my foundation with kids, and Q&A, and we'll get a 5th grader say, don't you wish you played in the jungle? I said, well, let me just give you a little history. The Jungle actually started our Super Bowl year. You know, people paint their faces and stuff, and they're like, oh, so you played in the Super Bowl? I said, yeah, we played too. But so first of all, playing the playoff games, the AFC Championship games at home was amazing. But to play in the Super Bowl was like, so my second year in the league, we go to the Super Bowl. I think we're going to play, 5, 6, 7 times in the Super Bowl after that. But it wasn't until my, 10th year that we played after that. But just the excitement that kind of hits your city that week before you travel to the Super Bowl site, with the media and all the coverage, and once you get over just dispersing the tickets and making sure your family has all the tickets and people coming from California, then you can settle down and enjoy it. But it was just, and the guys I played with, there's still a ton of those guys that live in Cincinnati that I played, not only Super Bowl 16, but 23, and the friendships that we've established, the brotherhood over the years is just amazing.
We were talking a little earlier about your coach, Sam Weiss, and the relationship that you have with him. Talk a little bit about that, and then give us a good Sam Weiss story, because I know there's got to be 1,000.
Or more. No, Sam Weiss, so it's funny because I'm sure Dee Dee remembers, we went out to California, our kids were very, very young babies, and we're having dinner at her mom's house, and Forrest Gregg was our coach. All of a sudden, sports comes on the news, and I see Forrest Gregg's head was pretty good size. All you have to do is see his bust up in Canton, it's pretty good. The whole screen of the sports section, the sports, when the guy was doing sports, was Forrest Gregg. So right away, man, it catches my attention. And it said, new head coach for the Green Bay Packers. I'm thinking, you've got to be kidding me. We leave Cincinnati and we lose the coach. Well, so now we're flying back to Cincinnati, and there's this gentleman sitting across the aisle from me. And a lot of times you see a face, you've never met someone, but they look familiar. And I kept looking at this guy, so finally, he reaches his hand across, he says, are you Anthony Munoz? I said, yeah. And he goes, I'm your new head coach, Sam Weiss. So I met him on the plane on the way back. So the guy was amazing, just a wonderful man. Not only a wonderful man, but a brilliant offensive mind. For those of you who remember, the first Super Bowl we lost, he was on the staff with Bill Walsh out in San Francisco. And then, he was at Indiana, then we hired him. What we were doing offensively for those 8 years with Sam Weiss was amazing. And then, of course, became very, very close friends. So when we lost him several years ago, it was just so sad that we lost him. But the guy was just amazing. You talked about stories. So I'll never forget, and I'm sure if you're football fans, if you're Cleveland Brown fans, you probably know this one. But just another one of what is Sam doing? Back in the day when I was playing, the PA announcer roamed the sidelines. He had his microphone, and then the head coaches back then didn't have the wireless headset. They had somebody carrying the wires from on the sideline. So we're sitting there, it snowed, and they're making announcements, people are throwing snowballs. All of a sudden, we're on our sideline. Sam takes off his headset, gives it to the guy, and we're like, oh no, what's he doing? He walks down the sideline. Where's he going? Across the end line. The PA announcer is on the visiting team sideline. So Sam, when we're watching, we go, what is, he goes right to the PA announcer and he grabs the mic and we go, oh no, what's he doing? He says, all right, for those that are throwing snowballs, stop it. For those that are sitting next to those that are make sure they're not doing it. You don't live in Cleveland. And the fans went nuts, and we're like, did Sam just do that? He just went over, took the mic, and just ripped on Cleveland, on one of our division rivals. But from what I heard after that year, I haven't confirmed it, but supposedly a non-for-profit group contacted Sam, and he was in downtown Cleveland in the dunking booth. And people were just lined up, and he's sitting there, and people are dunking him. So, he made up for it. But yeah, that's just one of the things. And we could say, we could tell you a few, but that was the one thing. We're just like Boomer and all the guys running. We would make our adjustments on the bench, and then we'd all kneel down and watch the defense. And all of a sudden, he takes off, and we're going, we're next. But that's probably the one that most people know about. Like I'll be around the country, and people will say, now, you live in Cincinnati. You don't live in Cleveland, right? I know exactly what they're talking about.
Yeah, as a Browns fan, even though I was a little younger, I remember that vividly when Sam Weish did that. As a Browns fan, there's certain guys that you don't like the Browns playing against, and you were one of those in my younger years because you were so good. Who was a guy or two that was like that for you, that was just so tough for you to play against?
Every week at left tackle, and my wife can probably concur with this one. Early in my year, there's one guy that I think I paced at night a little bit. Never did that with anybody else. One time, and I played against him probably 3 times. It was, I think, the second time I played against him, and that was Fred Dean. My rookie year, he was with the San Diego Chargers, and then he was traded to the 49ers my second year. We played in the Super Bowl. We played during the regular season. But my whole game plan was because he was a pass rushing specialist. So as a rookie, I'm watching videotape, and I'm saying, this guy can't be that fast. He's 240 pounds. He can't be that strong. So we played San Diego my rookie year, and yes, he was that fast. He was that strong. And so Fred Dean is the only guy that ever happened with me. And here is a gentleman that I absolutely love. I met him when I was about 15, 16 years old in Ontario, California.
I was 105.
Yeah. But so that is the one guy, Fred Dean. Coach, they just asked me who's the one guy that I maybe lost sleep over or was in my second year, and Didi remembers this, Fred Dean. Yeah. I played against him as a rookie at San Diego, and watching video at 240, I'm like, he's running backs down like they do now. So he's not that fast. He's taking offensive linemen, depositing them in the quarterback's lap. I said, he can't be that strong. So during the game, at left tackle, you rarely had somebody next to you. And I felt like saying, hey, Fred, can you get a little closer and play with me here? I can't, you're a little too fast. But like I said, I kind of jokingly said when he asked the question, I said, every guy is at left tackle, every guy that you face, you got to be on top of your game.
Well, I don't think there was anybody that ever was good enough to beat him on any consistent basis, believe me. That's why he's wearing that jacket. Maybe one of the top 3 tackles that ever played the game, let alone Hall of Fame. 1, 2, or 3 in the Hall of Fame. No question.
Coach, we started out talking with Anthony about beating the Buckeyes in the Rose Bowl, something that you did in 1976.
I watched him do it. I watched him. But people ask me about that game more than any game I coached in. I'm serious. You Buckeyes are spread all over the United States. That's amazing, and really, if we played the Buckeyes that year 5 times, they would have beaten us 4 times, okay? But we beat them the one time we had to beat them. We lost to them badly in the regular season. And, Woody Hayes and his coaching staff, they were the best. They were a really good football team. And the only way we prepared for the game was to say the only way we could beat this football team, this is how I talked to the squad, that each player on the team had to have his best game on the same day. Anthony can tell you, there are a lot of times he had his finest game ever against the best player, and he still lost the game because he's only one of 22 guys playing. But when you get a high percentage of all your players playing their best game on the same day, you can beat a lot of people, and that's what happened to us. I still remember Woody Hayes walking across the field. Any of you remember that? Huh? Minute or so to go in the game. It's not over yet. The clock's still running. We have timeout. We have the ball. We decide not to score the last touchdown, just to let the clock out, and he walks across the field. Woody Hayes. I'm not here. I'm a young guy, 35, 36 years old. Holy mackerel, what's he coming over here for? He grabs me and gives me a hug, and he says, "Fine job of coaching, young man." That's exactly. And turned around and walked away. That's the kind of man he was. Great man.
Coach, your coaching resume is pretty impressive, and you were head coach at every level. You were head coach in high school, and then you went to the college ranks, and then on to the pros. Where did you have the most fun coaching, and what's the difference coaching at all those levels?
I've been asked that many times. I never didn't have a good time. Now, game days when you lost, it wasn't a good time, but you're still part of your program. I'd say if I had to do it all over again, I'd go back to the NFL because it's all football. No recruiting, no other issues. no summer job programs like in the old days in college. There was no NIL, okay? You couldn't buy them a hot dog, it was against the law, even at Christmas. But pro football allowed you to really participate in your passion. You loved the game, and that's all it was about. And then you had the personnel side to it. But pro football, to me, I had very few players I didn't really care for, and I didn't keep them very long, okay? But the NFL is full of wonderful human beings. It's a little distorted in the newspaper many times because they emphasize the bad guy that gets in trouble and that kind of stuff. But in the locker room, in a well-organized NFL organization, is a great place to live. It really is.
Coach, we talked with Anthony about his 2 trips to the Super Bowl. You made it to the Super Bowl, lost, you made it and won with the Rams. What is that feeling like when you win the ultimate game in your profession?
You know, I don't think you could really appreciate a win unless you have lost one to compare it with. You know, when you've lost one and then win one, you know the difference and you feel the difference. And to me, it's almost impossible to totally describe. I don't have a good enough vocabulary to put it into words that everyone would understand. It's humbling. It's a great feeling of accomplishment and sharing with all the people, you know, because it takes the same thing to get to a Super Bowl and lose as it does to get there and win. It's a hell of a hard thing to do. And when we got there and won it, it creates a great sense of gratitude because everybody there helped you get there. Head coaches usually get a little more credit than they deserve, and we had some unusual play. There's 4 guys off that football team on the offensive side of the ball already in the Hall of Fame, and one guy, Torrey Holder, receiver, is still trying to get in. He's been in the finals every year for about 10 years. Okay, so there was this very, very skilled and a great coaching staff. Mike Martz came my last year there, and he put the frosting on the cake for us and refined the offense we were running and did a beautiful job. But it's humbling and it's a great feeling to share, starting first with your own family, then sharing with your team. I can still picture Orlando Pace picking me up and lifting me off the ground. It was easy for him to do, you know, because you remember he was the first pick in the draft, and my first pick, period, after coming back out of it being 14 years. So just a great human being. But you know, it's really difficult to describe it.
Anthony talked about Orlando Pace. He was here at this event last year with you. Who are some offensive linemen that you have enjoyed watching after your playing career was over?
Well, a lot of those guys, I mean, played after I did. I loved watching Orlando, who played here, then played for Coach at the Rams. Walter Jones, Seattle Seahawks. I mean, the guy is unbelievable. Jonathan Ogden. I mean, the guy. Willie Roaf, that's right. Willie Roaf, the Saints, and then with you at the Chiefs. I mean, there was, you know, one of the guys that I enjoyed watching is the kid at the Colts, the kid from Notre Dame, the guard. I've been watching Hood Nelson. You know, and what's Trent Williams at in the mid-30s with the 49ers. So there's guys that I love watching. Of course, when I was playing, I loved watching Jackie Slater.
16 years, right? Or no, 20 years.
20 years. Jackie played 20 years. Played for Hudson Houck, who I played for in college. So I mean, I enjoy watching that. You know, I enjoy watching the matchups between them. But more than just watching the individual players, Coach, I love watching them work together. The schemes and then how they work from first level to second level, how they pass off stunts by the defensive linemen. And that's what I love watching, the coordination between the offensive linemen. Because you might have, you know, a great offensive lineman or two, but it takes all 5. And one of my former teammates explains it perfectly. If you're going to punch somebody and your thumb's out, it's not going to hurt. But if you have that thumb here and you punch, there's more power. So for 5 offensive linemen, you got to have all 5 just tightly knitted together to work together. And so, yeah, I enjoy watching the guys. Even today, I enjoy watching some of the young players.
You know, Anthony, what you're saying is so true. It's harder to develop that today because the practice sessions aren't what they used to be. And if there's any one area in the NFL isn't what it used to be, is offensive line play. Just ask us, well, these guys, they look like they danced together. I mean, they were so hooked at the hip. And our offensive lines, when they were good, were just like that. They were just unbelievable unit. But you can't stay on the field individually and collectively as much anymore, and you don't work in pads as much anymore. And it's harder for offensive line coaches to develop that continuity. It really is much. I feel sorry for O-line coaches.
Coach, and to your point, watching NFL teams prepare for the regular season, and you go to a camp practice and it's all walkthrough and thud, and then a lot of these teams, their players don't play one down in the preseason.
I know.
So to me, week 1 and 2 are almost like preseason games.
And they
because
look
for
like
me, not to have a blitz pickup period and see blitzes live during camp, or work with my guard against 2 defensive ends, and see, not that you have to be out there for hour after hour, but just to see some of that live and get battle tested and get that feel. Because as coach knows, seeing that in practice and then seeing it in a game, 2 different levels. So it's one of those things where, because I do the Bengals preseason games on TV, and they don't. I think they might start hitting a little more, not a lot in camp, but they'll say, so how are they going to do? I said, well, ask me after the first couple of weeks. And last year, the difference was that opening game against the Patriots. They win that game, they're in the playoffs. They lose it, and in my humble opinion, the Bengals were a much, much better team than the Patriots, and the Patriots came in and physically dominated them.
Well, that happens often now, but everything he's saying is so true. And people ask me, I've been out of coaching, my last season was 2005. Would you like to coach again? I said, I probably could not win again, because our process of developing a football team was totally different than it is today. Our training camps were like spring practice in college, really. And for example, the Rams were the losingest team in the 90s when we took it over, and 3 years later, they won the Super Bowl, and only 9 guys were left on that roster that were under contract. Because a lot of them didn't like the way we were working. And we never took the pads off for 2 years. Not one practice, for 2 years. Saturday before the game, we took the pads off. And they bitch and they moan. Today, when we're together, they brag about it.
We're still moving and still alive after
They
doing
brag
that,
about
Coach.
it, and they criticize when they go watch their old team practice. These guys don't know what it's all about.
At our place, they call it Club Med. It's interesting. I mean, you make some great. And I love Coach Vermeil and what he's saying. But man, it's just what we did. It's just what we did. We got to camp expecting to put the pads on, and here it is. For me, and I ran hard. I was a distance runner, sprint guy, lifted all.
I'm a baseball player too.
I would get to camp. We'd report Friday night, full pads, 8:30 the next morning. Day 2 or 3, no lie, I'd wake up at 6 in the morning and I'd say, I can't do this today. Seriously, I cannot do this because my hair hurt. But you get up, you shower, you go get some food, you put the pads on, then you get over that 3rd, 4th day, and then you're ready to go.
And everybody else is doing the same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Today there are teams, well, you're a superstar, you don't have to work hard today. You played hard Sunday, you take Wednesday off. I cannot believe it, okay? I cannot believe it.
Somebody asked me they asked me all the time, I was sharing earlier, the 2 years we went to the Super Bowl, unfortunately we didn't win one. We had home field advantage, but we got home field advantage in week 16 each year. We won that game. So would Forrest Gregg, if you guys had the playoffs, would he sit you and let you rest week 16? I said, are you serious? No, he wouldn't. Do you think Forrest Gregg for Vince Lombardi took and rested late in the season when they were making their Super Bowl run? No.
Woody Hayes and Lombardi could have been brothers in philosophy and coaching and teaching. It was old school and great school.
You guys, I have so many more questions that I want to ask you, but I want to let some of these fans ask some too. Real quick though, before we do that, just last one for both of you. When you found out, each of you, that you were getting inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, just talk a little bit about your emotions, what that felt like.
Well, I was walking through the airport in San Francisco, okay, going up to my hometown of Napa Valley, and I get this phone call, and I'm walking at the edge of along the wall. My wife is we're going to go to the baggage and all that kind of, and I get this call, so-and-so from Hall of Fame wanting to, you're the finalist as a coach to go into the Hall of Fame. And it stunned me, and I leaned back against the wall, and Carol says, "What's wrong?" I says, "They just told me I'm the finalist as a coach to go in the Hall of Fame." I can't believe this. I can't believe this. And it's again, an overwhelming feeling. It is an overwhelming, and every time I go back there, Katie's back there, and we're going all around. Every time I go back into that place, it's so, you feel so grateful, because it makes you think of everybody that put you there. Everybody, starting with my high school coach, okay, starting with the discipline my dad implanted in me as a little kid, Let me I gotta tell one story on this guy. I have to tell this. I'm the head coach at UCLA. He's the #1 prospect in Southern California, and I'm recruiting him, and USC's recruiting. I make a home visit, middle of the day. His mom was there, his sister, I don't know, somebody else. Anyway, I parked my car right across the street, parallel, and opposite the driveway. His sister, we're having a great visit. His sister says, "Geez, Coach, excuse me, I've got to go," and all that. So she gets in the car, and she backs out right into my car. I'm sitting on the couch, and I hear this noise. I turn around. It's his sister. And if a car dealer gives the coaches a car to drive, not my car, puts both bumpers right in the side of the car. "Oh, that's all right. It's not a problem. No, we'll fix that up. Don't worry about it. Move on." I love to tell that on him. And then he went to USC.
It was, awful sound. We sat there, the screen door, and my sister had barely gotten her license. She just started driving. I'm like, oh. And I saw that, and I'm thinking, I about crawled under the couch. I felt so bad.
My wife was with me. We both looked at each other.
But I said, "Coach, good thing it's a dealership car, because I'm going to USC.
Just double whammy, just like he did to the Buckeyes too. So, if any of you guys have a question, go ahead and raise your hand, and we'll bring a mic around. Let's start right here in the second row on the end here on the right.
Thank you both for being here. It's a real treat, and welcome back, Anthony. I was at the Chuck Talk last year. Assuming you can do this next decade and tell stories, and I wouldn't be sad about that. My question is for Coach Vermeil. One of the most famous quotes in NFL coaching history is, "We're going to rally around Kurt Warner and play good football." What went through your mind that whole process with Trent Green going down, and then how did your confidence, your vote of confidence in Kurt Warner sort of galvanize the team, or did it? Maybe it sent them the other direction, maybe thinking this guy's crazy.
Well, that's a good question. I was more emotionally upset because Trent Green got hurt. He'd played 6 or 7 years in the league, never took a snap in a game. And then he played the year before we signed him as a free agent, part of the season for the Redskins at that time, because the starter got hurt and he got to play, and he played well. So we signed him and bring him with us. And he's a St. Louis kid. So, he had thrown 27 for 31 in preseason games. And on the practice field, he was lighting them up, okay? And then when he went down, it really hurt me because of how much it hurt him. The Kurt Warner thing, the one thing I learned, I'd been out of coaching for 14 years, and I no longer could run my own offense, be my own coordinator, call my own plays, and still have 51% control of the organization. So I had coordinators. The advantage it gave me, I found out as a head coach, I could watch everybody on the practice field all the time. And I would stand in the defensive secondary during the opponent's offense against our defense in preparation to play. And Kurt Warner was our third quarterback in 1998. Okay, shit, every ball he threw was complete. I'd walk off the field, I get John Bunning and Peter Junta, my coordinator, and say, "Either our defense is horse crap or this kid can play." And he would make the defensive coordinators mad because they always put the plays on cards, the opponent's plays, and they would circle where they wanted to throw the ball. He wouldn't throw it there because they had him covered. He'd throw it over here. So when we made him our backup quarterback, his second year with us, when it was time for him to play, I was confident he could play well. I did not know he could play like he could. Yeah, there was nobody has ever done what he did coming out of nowhere. You know, he was 17 touchdowns, 3 interceptions his first 5 games. That's hard to do. Something like that was amazing what he did. And he had 3 of the first 5 games. He had quarterback efficiency ratings over 120. That was amazing. You know, I compare that performance to the guy that's a Medal of Honor winner in a war. No one knows who that guy's going to be. You put him in the action, give him the opportunity, and he is. That's what Kurt Warner was, and still is.
Anyone else? Questions?
Hi, first of all, welcome both of you. This has been a treat. Coach Vermeil, you were not only a great coach, but I believe a terrific broadcaster.
I appreciate that.
You and Brent Musburger, for us OSU fans, it's like, yes, they're calling the game. One question I have, and I hope I remember this correctly, OSU was playing Indiana, and I believe you said you coached Indiana once.
No.
Is that correct or
No.
not? Okay, it must have been someone else, but yeah, you calling the game, and I saw that Musburger is becoming a Hall of Famer too, so.
Yes, yeah, and very
Terrific.
deserving.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I love coming to Buckeye Land. We used to go to Munoz, Musburger and I for dinner on Friday night, or Thursday nights when we got in town. Brent Musburger was just, he was a true broadcaster. I'm not a broadcaster, I can talk football, but he was a true broadcaster. And what was fun was to get him involved in preparation, like a coach would. All of a sudden, he's looking at films with me. He's going to practice with me. He's going to the head coaches' meetings, the assistant, sitting in the locker room talking to the players. That's how I got to know Orlando Pace for years. That's what made me, I said, you know, if I'm ever a football coach again, I'm gonna get that guy on my side.
Any other questions?
More questions?
If you guys don't have questions, I'm gonna have to start asking questions.
Thank you. This is for Coach. It's before my time, but I want to ask you about Vince Capelli about 1976. What was your first thought about him?
You know, when I took the Eagle job, they didn't have a first, second, third round pick for 3 years. And they hadn't been in the playoffs in 18 years. And so I had an open trial for anyone who wanted to try out. And there were some old guys that had played in the league that could no longer play that came and that, but we had over 110 guys. He was an Italian kid, and he ended up being the fastest 40 time. Well, that's a pretty good sense, and I'm partial to Italians, okay? I'm half Italian, okay? So I was sort of pleased, and we signed him he would have paid us, okay? He's 30 years old, and we get in these preseason games, and we're really emphasizing the special teams. And he was a great kickoff and punt coverage guy. Really, he loved it. And he got so he could catch the ball pretty well too. You know, his college did not have a football team. He ran track, he was a pole vaulter and hurdler and long jumper. He played on a semi-pro team that started in Philadelphia, and he played on that a little bit. But the league didn't fold it right away. So, but I stay in touch with him. I got a text from him right now because his son's getting married here the first weekend in May. But he's a great guy. I read the script before they started filming it. I called him, this was about 2001. I called the person that gave me the number and asked me, I said, you know, there's a lot of stuff in this script here, it's not true. And the guy said, you know, Coach, we're not doing a documentary on Vince Papale, we're telling a story. Okay, and the story was true. A lot of things in it, you know. You don't leave training camp at 11 o'clock at night and go across from the bar you worked in and play in a rain mud football game. 11 o'clock is bed check, okay? And our meetings didn't get over until 11 o'clock. So things like that. But they told the story. You know, I don't go anywhere where someone doesn't ask me about them. I'm sitting in the south of France many years ago at a lunch, okay? And a Frenchman walks up speaking broken English French and asked me about the movie. So help me God. It's amazing.
11 o'clock bed check doesn't sell. So
No.
we still got about 5 minutes, guys, so if anybody has any more questions for Coach or Anthony, go ahead.
Thanks, Coach, Anthony. Thank you guys so much for being here today. This is an incredible treat for everybody, and I'm interested to hear from both of you on this. Coach, of the teams that you in the NFL that you coached, and Anthony, similarly for you, coming out as a rookie, a ton of talent. but everybody talks about that rookie wall, or just that moment maybe in their sophomore season, sophomore slump. Coach, do you have any stories about a player that came in to your organization, whichever of the teams, so much talent, but we just couldn't get him to get the NFL? And then Anthony, for you, a rookie, wall or a sophomore slump, that what'd you do to just kind of get through or over that?
Well, I can remember a lot of rookies, young players, free agents, and drafted players. About 3/4 through the season, their skin complexion changes. God, you look pale. What the hell are you doing? Because they're not used to working as hard and as long and as intensely, because everybody is a fine player. A college kid, a good player in college doesn't play against a quality player equal to him every day. And that really wears them out physically and emotionally. And you have to do some things to get them through it. I always had a rookie dinner at my house. I would not stay at work on Thursday night. I'd go home. My wife and I would prepare a dinner for them, and just see them as kids, because they are kids, and really get to know them at that time, and tell them how it's going to be the next few months. And those kind of things helped a little bit. But it is a real grind for that first year guy, a real grind. Not as much so today.
So for me, it was an extra grind, because I only played half the college games in 4 years at USC. So I had a lot of energy for my rookie year. But no, I'd say probably week 12, 13. Because I started right from day 3 and played 4 preseason games. And so about week 12, 13, I had to really look at myself and push myself through it. And my wife knows when I need to do something, I go work out. So I would go into the off day when I knew that I needed it, and I would push myself through a workout when nobody was there in the weight room, or I'd go out and run a couple miles. And that's just the way I dealt with being tired. And then my sophomore or my second year, not only 4 preseason games, 16, and then we have 3, we go to the Super Bowl. So my first 2 years as an NFL football player, I played 43 games. And I only played like 26 in 4 years at USC. But I'd have to say that probably 3/4 of the year, my rookie year, you could feel it. Because like they said, it was Wednesday full pads, Thursday full pads, Friday full pads, goal line and short, and then game. Yeah, we would. And then there was a time we'd come out in helmets, shoulder pads, and shorts, and we'd go full speed, goal line and short yards. So we'd go, why don't we just put the full pads on if we're going? So, but yeah, that first year you do. You feel it, because it's like, your body is going through a lot. 4 weeks of 2 practices a day in full pads, and then you move right into full pads in the regular season. But that's high school. We did that. College, that's all we knew. So you adjusted, and your body adjusted to it.
My first year, in the first few years in the league, it was 6 weeks of training camp. We played 6 preseason games. Yeah.
Guys, we got time for one more in the back here.
Coach Anthony, this is such a treat. I'm a big Philadelphia fan, Philadelphia Eagles. I want to get your opinion on the tush push, the brotherly shove, and whether it should be banned or not.
I don't like the play. To me, it's not a football play, but I don't think I would vote to ban it. Because I think you have to give credit for the innovation of a staff that decided to teach this and do it. And why penalize them because it's successful? If you don't like it, you think it's pretty damn good, do it yourself, and then coach it as well as they have. But I don't think I would vote against it. I respect what they did as coaches to get it done. I don't like it though. To me, one other area I'm a little concerned about. Granted, they're very, very close together, but a high percentage of those guys have their head down. And that's the worst position for a football player to ever have his head, with his chin down to his chest.
So to that point, when we ran a quarterback sneak, we always put our head, we'd always come together and the head up right into the underarms of the guy next to you. Because, first of all, you're not going to, the health thing, I agree with you. If you're going to come off, get that head up and make sure you're doing it the right way. But then on the other hand, as an offensive player, we always said, even if they heard what play, you know what play's coming, so stop it.
Yeah.
So, like, I had a rookie guard, and I was making the calls a little too loud. He goes, they're going to hear you. I said, if they hear us, they still gotta stop us.
They're not gonna move.
And there's only one team that does it right, and you can't stop them.
Oh,
Other
yeah,
teams
they're
try.
really good at it. They're really good. And the other thing, see, defensive rule-wise, you cannot push another defensive player into an offensive player. So the offensive, I'd like to see them eliminate that rule. When we were playing and coaching, you couldn't do that anywhere on the field. Now they do it anywhere on the field. You can assist your offensive player moving forward. And sometimes I think it creates 15-yard penalties. Because an offensive lineman runs in late and pushes his guy from by him and he hits 2 or 3 guys, 15-yard penalty.
Coach and Anthony, thank you guys so much for being here today and taking the time to talk with all these people. We really appreciate it. Thank you to all of you guys for buying the tickets as well and coming out here today. I know there's a lot of things going on this Saturday. I know there's no chance of seeing a record anymore, but hey, the Jackets can keep their playoff hopes alive, hopefully at least for a couple more hours. So thanks again to all of you, and let's go watch the Jackets win now.
All right, guys.